see, in Europe at least, a lot of communist parties are in decay. And when I mean in decay, it's less voters. Of course, there are other left-wing movements which incorporate a lot of these traditional communists. And one of the exceptions, well, not the exception to this trend, but exception to, in a way which it still preserves its traditional form, and actually his ideas are very progressive. I think it's the Portuguese Communist Party. And if you listen to the speeches of all political parties in Portugal, from left to right, at the end, when every subject comes to discussion, and this has been now for decades, at the end, if you go and check who was right, and you're gonna realize that most of the times the arguments of the Portuguese Communist Party were the right ones. I can point out to the early days just before joining the European Union, where they were warning of the economical problems that would bring to the country and to its sovereignty and to its capacity to deal with its own problems. And everything that was predicted came to be. And nowadays, the role of this political organization, it's still the Workers' Party. It's still the party that fights for workers' rights, for the fair share of the fruits of labor, for the fair treatment of the worker, in favor of the favorable treatment, favorable laws concerning when there is a dispute between the worker and the boss, and the health care of the workers and the public services. These are its strong main points also, but they are not only limited to this, they are very comprehensive, because they also entail a vision for the country, a productive vision and a way of production and a way of organizing society in a democrat environment. I get a lot of criticism and sometimes some nasty comments when I say that I'm a Democrat and a communist. And let's laugh about this. They think it's a joke, and all of this, it's due to people's ignorance of the history of the Portuguese Communist Party, which was and its role in founding the Portuguese democracy. For example, you have, and nowadays it doesn't have the popularity of the days that are past, of the past days. But despite of that, because it's it's segregated from the news a lot of times. If you have a panel of commentators, you call all party members except the ones from the Portuguese Communist Party. And this happened even when its representation was much bigger than it is today, in a clear intention to erase the voice of this party. Of course, these are neoliberal forces, because this is the true organization that keeps its traditional values, although very progressive. It hasn't sold out like the most of other left parties. For example, when everyone was crying at one voice, crying tears for Ukraine back in February 2022, the Portuguese Communist Party kept a cool head, and it was the one that was giving a broad perspective on what it was happening, and it was the only one that was educating the people on what it was happening beyond the propaganda, right? And I'm sorry, maybe I'm going to a little bit of to a length that I was not intending to, but this to say that these ideas, actually the ideas that help the workers, and therefore if you help the workers, a society that value its workers, it's a balanced society, it's a healthy society, it's where the economies boom, right? And so these ideas, although the popularity of this party, because it's a lot of times it's demonized, the Ukraine example I just gave was one. All other parties were capitalizing on this and trying to, they made a lot of smear pieces on the news about the Portuguese Communist Party on the issue of Ukraine. But nevertheless, I realized, because I'm a worker myself, currently in industry, I realized that the claims or the complaints of all the workers, almost without any exception, that I talked to, my fellow colleagues, and even workers that I talked to from other branches, for example, tourism, the services, hotels and cafes and restaurants and the like, they all complain about the same thing, which is the greed of the boss. They bust their asses working and they don't see themselves recognized. And they are able, amazingly, they are able to identify every aspect of this relation between boss and worker, be it a big company or a small company. They are very, because they do not have any doctrine or prior education, but they clearly, if you listen to most of them, you could see that they are like, they have Marxist arguments. But the problem with all this, it's very nice to have this conscience, but the problem with all this is that they are so unable to make any move to change their reality. And this is what scares me and puzzles me at the same time. I personally, I haven't never been like that. I've always been either unionized or creating informal struggle groups within my fellow workers group. But most of the people were always afraid to do it. Always. And then of course, then you have the class of people, which are the bootlickers, the ass kissers. Those will always exist. If you read history books, if you read history, you see that in every development of history, every political scene, you always had the competent people, the people who were fighting for the just cause, and the bootlickers, the ass kissers. Those still are with us today. Different versions, modern versions of them. But nevertheless, history has also shown that when unity is strong enough, things change. And I have this, I have lived this. A lot of time is unsuccessful struggle, that's also true. But if you don't go to the struggle, if you don't organize, then you accomplish nothing at all, that's for certain. And if you organize and do it, sometimes of course you have to take risks, that's true. Some people have the rope around their necks, they have a lot of expenses in their lives. It's not easy for them, but if it's properly organized, you can defend almost everyone's interests and the fight can be done successfully. if all is organized. It's all it takes. It's organizing the people. And so we have the same conscience. People complaining about being exploited, working a lot, devoting. They are fed all the time with these jargons, liberal jargons that you're not a worker, you are a collaborator, or you have to be always dynamic, you have to be, keep up with the trends, whatever. This bullshit corporate bullshit that the big corporations manage to impregnate all the media with it, and therefore a lot of the people think like that, because although they are aware of the things that hurts them, they are unable to see what can be done to change. And this is, I'm repeating myself, but this is it's still puzzling me. And maybe sometimes they are able to live big chunks, if not all, of their working lives complaining and seeing the injustice, but they will never dare to join a cause or take part in I'm not going to say rebellion, but in an action to change their reality. I am sure that not everywhere is like this, but I am mostly speaking about my experience, my living experience. And this is, I think, in my opinion, this is all due to a very heavy duty indoctrination propaganda, which I've talked about several times in the past in these videos. Sometimes it comes in a very subtle way. You don't even notice. It comes in the movies, like things that there are messages that prevent you to have class conscience and make you the perfect hamster for the wheel, because you think that if you only do the next step, if you only make that extra mile, if you only do that extra hour at work every day, that you will make it. Or if you only risk it all, get a loan from the bank and start your own business, that one day you might be this big enterprise. And a lot of people with this in mind, they very easily fall into this trap of slavery, modern slavery, debt slavery, I mean. But it still puzzles me how one is aware at his workplace of all the injustices that are being carried against him or against a group, and the group, it's more in numbers. They do the production, they do the creation of wealth. They own the company. Would be nothing if it was not for them. They are the essentials. They are the engine, and still they cannot see it. It's I'm sure a lot of people in psychology that study this propaganda and the way to manipulate the masses can explain this very well. But and then it's funny when I use the word funny, but it's not funny. It's just strange. That's what I mean. When you talk to the people about everyday subjects, if you mention, for example, communists, they immediately bring out those dog whistles. It's like a dog whistle. They immediately start to drool and repeating the same words. It's very well engineered mind control. Not every people, of course, but I can safely speak that most people are affected by this. Otherwise, things would change. And I see the difficulty that I have, for example, my work and previous works that I had, the struggle, the energy that you have to put when you want to organize workers for their own benefit. It's like you are working for them. Eventually you will benefit a little bit, but there are plenty of other people that believe that they can do that other ways, by kissing ass and going over their colleagues, you know, try to get the promotion, and as long as they get paid, they don't give a fuck if others are left behind, right? But when you are working for the collective, it's really for the collective, and everyone, it's for everyone's benefit. And it's still difficult. It's still, people get this paralysis. They paralyze very easily. They doubt very easily. Sometimes they can be, you know, these guys that in everyday life, they are tough guys, they don't take shit from anyone. But there, they freeze. Of course, it's their sustenance, or it's their means of living. So they immediately lose their bravery. They are more brave to, many times they are more brave, they are very brave to screw the next guy, the equal to them, the colleague, than stand up against the injustice. Please, anyone in the comments, if you know anything about this, if you share this vision, if you have any explanations, please lay them to me, please. Because it seems a very simple equation, yes, mathematical operation. It seems simple. We are more, we do all the work, we carry their heavy burden, we have the same interests, so we get together and we decide. Of course, you have to be always be aware of the bad apples, because within the workers' movements there are always people who just, they get on board if they see strength, and they only get on board to take the fruit, but if problems occur, they are the first ones to jump the boat. You have to be aware of this. There are a lot of problems. It is not easy, but it is easy if all people get together. And it is possible. I've experienced it. And of course, I'm talking I have experienced it, but history is well documented. Okay guys, I hope I see you on the next one. And thank you for watching these videos. I really like your participation. Just leave the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Leave your critics. I tend to have some critics and I understand them very well. I just want to thank those people that criticize, and sometimes they criticize the content or they criticize my opinions. I want to thank them for being in this forum and watching the videos. It means if they criticize, it means they watched, so I value them very much. Thank you very much. I hope I see you on the next one.